So it's the holidays, and I've been thinking about, how that time of year is impacted by the midlife change, right? Do you find yourself just a little less in the holiday spirit than you used to be? Yeah. Well, you're not alone. And as you know, because we've been talking about it here on the podcast, that has a lot to do with the hormonal changes that are happening for women in this age range, 45 to 65, and estrogen going down, progesterone going down, the difference between those two, having a bigger gap than you want, and all of the host of other neurochemicals that go down as well as a result of that leads us to be a little bit more irritable. Also, though, leads us to a little bit, as women, be a little bit more focused on ourselves or our experience within that context. Whereas most of our lives, we've been really more on the pulse of where everybody else is at. And so there's a lot of growing pains that I think show up. During the holidays, I'm using that, I'm picking on that, but I think it's happening not because it's the holidays, but because the holidays kind of is a microcosm of all of the habits that we've gotten into, caring for other people, denying what we need for ourselves, or just not seeing it at all. And it's kind of a microcosm or a miniature version of what's happening to us at a macro level. So I thought today, let's talk a little bit about the holidays, talk about how you're going to cope through it, how you might get through this season without killing someone, as I like to say. Just keep listening, and we'll pick apart what it is that you need to be doing this holiday season to take care of yourself. Welcome. This is Midlife Crisis to a Centered Life Thriving, a podcast that teaches women in midlife to unapologetically stop silencing their dreams and start designing the lives they want to live in. I'm your host, Dr. Natalie, and as a clinical psychologist of the last 2 decades and a twice divorced single mother myself, I not only know how hard it can feel heading into midlife, I am living it right here with you. I've taken all the many failed attempts and lessons learned in my own life and combine it with my extensive clinical experience to give you the tools you need to make midlife the best time in your life. No joke. So let's get started. Welcome back to Midlife Crisis to a Centered Life Thriving. It's great to be back. It's great to see you. As you saw in the intro or heard in the intro, I'm thinking about the holidays because it's the holidays, right? I'm thinking about how does that impact us as midlife women, and what are you noticing in your world? I'd love to hear in the comments, what are the things that, is it great? Is it better in midlife to be in the holidays? Is it same? Is it worse? I mean, I imagine for all of us, everything is just a little bit different, which is what we're going to talk about today. And also that what's showing up for you in spades sometimes at this time of year, that tends to be the thing that it kind of represents how our lives are being impacted as a whole at this stage in our life. So I I don't know about you, but as the head of my family household, I'm a single parent household. I am solely responsible for all of the things. So even if that means I'm not going to like actually create a dinner and invite everybody over for dinner here, like we go join another bigger family system, extended family system somewhere else, I still have to coordinate all the scheduling. I still have to coordinate getting all of the presents. I still have to coordinate getting the decorations up and getting the decorations down and all of the things that go with that. If it is that I want to, continue with those rituals. And I got to tell you, it's a little lackluster. Like I used to be super type A about my decorations. I would like even take pictures after I got everything up so that I could kind of mimic it from year to year. I don't know if you're like this. And, every 4 or 5 years, I would go to like Target or something after Christmas, the day after Christmas, and I would like buy a bunch of new ornaments and things and kind of make the theme a little bit different. So I was into it. Like holiday seasons for me reminds me of my mom. And with Thanksgiving that just went by, it will have been 19 years since she passed away. So it's been a long while. And it just reminds me of her because it was one of the holidays that I just remember the pomp and circumstance around it, right? I appreciated that. What I don't appreciate is in my irritable, perimenopausal way, I am responsible for all of this. Like, I'm not excited about that. And I'm guessing you're not excited about that or that you've had some similar experiences. And I think, like kind of what's happening is we have these high expectations of ourselves, as we always do. And we want to make it work the way that it's always worked. We want the routine to be there. We don't want to slack anywhere during the holidays, but we just don't have it in us to do it, right? And so it's coming out a little bit sideways. Like maybe for the last 2 years, I would say I've just kind of let my daughter decorate, right? So my type A, I looked at the picture and I decorate the house the same way the next year. I've just stopped. I'm just like, here are the 12 bins that we pull out for Christmas. Yes, it's about 12 bins. I'm not going to lie. And use what you want. Don't use what you don't want. Like, I don't care, right? I don't care. So this is how I'm showing up to the holiday season, even though that in my heart of hearts, I'd like it to be pulled off the way that it always has been. I just don't have it in me to be responsible for all of that. And I'm having a little bit more grace for myself about that. And I'm spending a little bit more time observing, oh, okay, this is how that's happening, right? So this is kind of like last podcast we talked about the places that you least expect, or you're never going to be prepared in midlife. But the places where the pain points are least expected in that is kind of in the places where you don't want to give up doing something, but you're going to have to. Like something's got to budge, right? So I was talking about how if you're somebody that always puts everybody else first, which is not uncommon for women who are socialized that way, well, gall, I mean, you get to this stage of your life and it's easy maybe to say no to the people that you don't like, but you're going to have to say no to the people that you love, the people that you don't want to say no to because you don't have bandwidth. You just don't. It's not there. It's not there. So I'm thinking about this holiday season and this concept. And I was reminded, and so I went back and I looked for this old picture, not old meaning like it's like a 40-year-old picture. But it was a picture of my mom, and I'm guessing she was about my age. Actually, she was probably just slightly younger than me because I think it happened when I was in high school. And she turned 50 when I graduated from high school. Yeah, so she was probably in her mid 40s, right? Like mid to late 40s. So she was right in the heat of where I am right now, or where we all are right now. And it was a picture after the dinner, like the table was cleared. And usually after we cleared the table, then games would come out. And I remember that had been sitting around playing games, and then somebody took a picture of her. And the look on her face, it was like she was exhausted. She was, it honestly, like dysphoric, I guess would be the word I would use. Like, depressed seems a little bit extreme, but like the look on her face was like, nothing here. I'm not enjoying this. Nothing here is fun. Like all her kids around her laughing, carrying on. You see the table, you see the game pieces on the table. And yet that was her face looking directly at the camera. Right. And so I went back and I found that picture because I've thought about this picture before. And I thought to myself, holy smokes. And just to give you kind of some background even more, my mother worked for the Catholic Church all of her life as a liturgical minister, which a big part of that is coordinating the what we call liturgy as Catholics, or I'm a recovering Catholic, but the music that, is being sung at the masses or services that are happening throughout for all of the services, but in the Christmas season, there's extra services, right? Because there's like 2 times a year that Christians like to show up to church, Easter and Christmas, right? So yeah, Christmas is a super busy time of year for her for work. And then she did all of this stuff, right? I remember the millions and millions of bins that would come out. My parents used to have these cardboard filing cabinets. I don't know if you've ever seen these things from the 70s, but like they legit look like one of those tall filing metal cabinets, but it's all in cardboard, like a really, really sturdy cardboard. And there was just like one after another of those just lined with different Christmas decorations. And she would take everything off of her shelves and then she'd put up the Christmas stuff and then she'd wrap up all of the stuff that's usually on our shelves, put it in there. And then we would drag those back up to the attic where we kept them. And I have fond memories of this, and I can see in my daughter, who's almost 11, 10 and a half, 11, like this is how she thinks about this time of year. She is super excited. The elf on the shelf is going to start moving around the house. Not my favorite thing. And she's all excited about this and talking about it and writing letters to Santa and all of the things. And I want to be there. I want to, and I can't. Like it's just literally not inside me right now. So like this is the kind of stuff that I think in midlife we really need to get a handle on how we're going to show up to this. What could we be doing for ourselves a little bit different? Well, first of all, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the changes that are happening in your brain, and they are major changes. Dr. Mosconi, I think is her name, has done a ton of research on that menopausal female brain or perimenopausal female brain. So please look up, some of what she has out there. But one of the things that we know kind of shifts is what I would call like being able to emotionally scan a room and have awareness of all things in a room back down to the more narrow, it's my lived experience within this context, individual kind of view of the room. Now, men or males, people who are born with male DNA genetically, tend to have that all through their life. It's just, you would call it egocentric, but not because they're pompous or selfish or that. It's just because they're centered from their own perspective. Like that's just how they view the world. Women, however, when they go through the change in adolescence and then become childbearing or are in childbearing years and their ovaries are giving them all the estrogen and everything is at its peak, women tend to where the person is in the back of the room that's not feeling great, right? Like you're keeping an eye on them and that so-and-so over here is starting to become kind of irritating. Like Uncle Joe, super irritating, starting to say things politically that's going to piss off the rest of the family. And so-and-so is over there in the corner because they feel left out because they're the cousin that's like in between the ages. So they're not in the older kid room, but they don't want to play with the younger kids. Like women tend to be the people that can have a pulse on that as soon as you enter a room. But as your brain sunsets into the third phase of your brain development in life, through midlife, through the estrogen reducing and your body figuring out in menopause where that state will be, we actually go back to more of that egocentric viewpoint. Kids, by the way, are all like that, right? Like we know that, like everything is about them and revolves around them. It doesn't mean that we don't have the ability to like still read the room. We do. But our set point kind of starts to shift more to what is my lived experience in the middle of this. And the reason I want to point this out is I think as a psychologist, this is fascinating to me, right? There are things that are happening out here and we're looking for reasons out here. We're blaming our hormones and we're saying it's midlife and, our lives are changing and we're empty nesting or our jobs are changing, whatever. We want to, outside of our bodies, kind of create a reason why we are the way we are. But the truth of the matter is a big part of like what I'm telling you about, my example, I'm not in the Christmas spirit, the way that holiday spirit, the usual way that I am. It's because in large part, my brain has already started to make that shift. So I'm thinking through the lens of Natalie's lived experience of this is da 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 da, right? No, no judgment, no like it's good, not good, or the better way or the not better way. That's just my newer set point. But I'm still adjusting to that newer set point. So here's the other layer that I see happening for women in midlife. The other layer is we still remember that we used to, put everybody else first and wanted to, and probably even got a lot of our, accolades and self-worth out of how well we did that we were the mom or the great aunt or the whatever, we liked being that coordinator of all those things and being aware of all the people. And we felt good when we could, catch the kid in the corner that was upset and fix that problem, or, do something to pipe down Uncle Joe over there who is starting to irritate people at the holiday dinner or after the holiday dinner. My adjustment and your adjustment to this new set point of having more of our own experience be part of the information, that's new. That's new, and we're adjusting. And we have a pretty big growth edge with this. And I want you to think about anything that you've learned how to do in your life, anything that's taken time for you to learn how to do. Learned a new language, learned how to play an instrument, learned how to cook. It takes time, right? Like it's not like you set it and forget it. You like do it one time and then it's just part of your stuff. It takes repetition, right? We practice over and over and over, and then it becomes a habit. Then it becomes instinctual for us. So if instinctually in the middle of my adulthood, young adulthood to now, I could read the room and prioritize others over me, I still have a memory of that, like a body memory. Like I feel it in my body, almost like I'm mad at myself. I'm upset with myself that I can't be in the holiday spirit the way that I usually am. And yet my set point in my brain has changed over to, but Natalie, your lived experiences, this is a lot of work for one human. This is a lot of work for one human to keep up. And you've been doing this for 20, I don't know, 4 or 5 years on your own in your household. Like, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. And maybe you should give yourself a little grace and a little bit of a break and have some self-compassion that like, it's okay. Like, yes, it's fun. And could we somehow modify your expectations here to better meet where your capacity is for setting it all up? So, I gave you an example of how I did that. I bring out the bins and I give them to my daughter, and she's all excited about it. And she's like also excited about let me put my own spin on this and put, the Santa Claus over here and the stockings over here and the blah, blah, blah over here. So she's liking that. She's finding her own in that. And I'm taking a back seat to it. However, the wrinkle is there. Like almost am like mad at myself that I've taken the back seat. Like, oh, I should. And you start shooting on yourself. I should be able to do this. I should be able to do that. I would bake cookies every year. I didn't even really eat them, my friends. And I have a sweet tooth. Only if I made molasses cookies did I actually eat them, because the sugar cookies where you put all the sprinkles and the thing, never my favorite. Never my favorite. Unless they're super soft and have like a lot of frosting on them. Unless they have extra sugar on top of the sugar, I'm not in. I'm not in for it. So like these are things that I would do. And I didn't last year. Last year was the first time that I didn't bake. But my daughter has started to bake, and I just, like I go and get the stuff that she wants, and I support her in doing that. And I do have to clean the kitchen after her because we're still struggling with learning that piece. But these are things that I'm trying to create some space for self-compassion with. Now, I know you're listening to this and you're thinking like, this is all great and good, Dr. Natalie. I still am mad at myself. Like I can't turn that off. And I also wanted to just share how normal that is. Like so normal. because of that, go back to anytime you learn a new thing, it takes time. Over time and practice, then you have the new habit. You always kind of revert back to the old habit. And so there should be a tug of war internally. And instead of like blaming menopause and hormones and all, even that your brain is changing, instead of like being like accusing that of this is why I do this, why don't we this holiday season give ourselves the gift of saying, hey, this is part of my growth. Like I'm kind of becoming a new person here and I don't know what it'll be on the other side. And who's to say it could be amazing? It could be amazing. This new way of me thinking about myself and kind of, in the context, when I'm looking at stuff, I'm kind of always bringing it back to my experience of it. Like this could end up being a really good thing. I've harped over and over on this podcast about the importance of building self-awareness as part of a overall growth and growth mindset strategy to have in your life. You can't change what you don't know. You could feel uncomfortable about it. You can participate in your own suffering for a long time, not looking at something. And it won't shift until you start to bring some self-awareness to it. And there's this place in the middle that's super uncomfortable where we notice that we're doing a thing that's harmful to us, but we don't stop doing the thing. So I just want you to first of all, understand here's where your brain's at. This is why maybe some of that stuff is happening to you, like it's happening to me. And have that compassion for yourself. And yet know and normalize for yourself, and you'll beat yourself up for a while because that's an old habit too, until you learn to shift into this new, more self-compassionate way of looking at things, or what I like to call compassionate self-awareness. And I do think your brain is starting to change into a machine that can do that quite well. So we are this is one of the great things about going from perimenopause into menopause is that our brain, when we settle, will now have, to be able to just let go of, I need to read the room automatically. It'll just let go of having to have its thumb on the pulse of all those things. It'll start with yourself. So there's almost a priming towards having better self-awareness or compassionate self-awareness as you age. But there's a lot of discomfort in the middle. There just is. This is what midlife transition is all about, is getting through this uncomfortable stage without making it a crisis, without, blaming ourselves, being upset with ourselves, trying to revert back to old ways, being upset when we can't revert back to old ways. This is all about accepting the version of you that you are today instead of being in love with some fantasy story of yourself. You love the story you're in. You love the life you already have. And that's what I talk about all over learntoloveyourstory.com, with my blogs, with my videos, with these podcasts. It's what we talk about here on Midlife Crisis to a Centered Life Thriving. It's what I will continue to talk about on Midlife Crisis to a Centered Life Thriving. And one more thing before we go today, I just want to also encourage you to be in community with one another about this, because it feels very isolating to go through this midlife transition. And if you don't know any other midlife ladies in your life, or you don't have somebody you can just call up and socialize with to kind of help you feel normal, help you feel supported in this growth edge that you have here in this midlife transition, then comment in all of my social media places, because we're talking about it here and you can get support from us. Get it wherever you need to get it. Read the books, listen to the podcasts, go and find people that are in this similar circumstance in the middle of their life. And know that you're not alone in this, because you really aren't. You really aren't. And I don't want you to feel isolated. And I don't want you to feel like everything is just a slog. And Dr. Natalie is just blowing up the airwaves, telling you all the crap that you're going to have to deal with in midlife. That is not the point of this show. The point of this show is to tell you we can do this. We can move from midlife crisis to a centered life thriving. Because I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota, I have to make sure at the end of each of these episodes that I give you the disclaimer that none of the material that I talk about in these podcasts is meant to replace any kind of therapy or formal medical or mental health treatment. And in fact, anything that I offer on my website, my coaching programs, any kind of psychoeducational materials that I release are not a replacement for that level of care. So just take that into account when you listen. This is information for you, and hopefully you find it of value, both as an educational tool and for your entertainment. And I also want to mention that if anyone you know is in a mental health crisis, needs additional help, I always include these two crisis resources. They're available to anybody. Pick up the phone and dial 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And you can always visit their website at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Additionally, there's actually a crisis text line. So if you're not somebody that likes to pick up the phone, text HOME, home, to 741-741 to the crisis text line. And you can find them online at crisistextline.org. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and I hope that you like and follow me wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe consider leaving me a review. It always helps me to keep this podcast relevant when I know what you want to hear about.